Good morning, everyone.
Haven't all the talks been amazing?
That was pretty good. We're going to get louder.
I'd like to tell you the story of a 27-year-old man who was rushed to hospital after taking a drug overdose. When he arrived at the emergency department, he dropped an empty prescription bottle for an experimental antidepressant medication on the floor. His blood pressure was crashing, he was shaking and hyperventilating. Nurses rushed to his side to try and save his life. This man had been part of a clinical trial to test for new antidepressant medication, and in the first month, he reported a significant improvement in his mood. But in the second month, he had an argument with his ex-girlfriend and he became suicidal. He took the remaining 29 pills left in that prescription bottle, and then he immediately regretted his actions. He was rushed to hospital by his neighbour. This case was written up in the journal General Hospital Psychiatry because 4 hours after his arrival to that emergency department, it was revealed that Mr. A had been in the placebo arm of the clinical trial. He had taken an overdose of sugar pills. I'm using the story of Mr. A as a powerful demonstration of how our beliefs and our expectations can impact our body and our health. And today I'll be talking about this and some of the other often overlooked critical factors that are influencing our health. I'll be telling you about some of the pioneering researchers I've met in the last 10 years who are demonstrating that if we take a whole health approach to the treatment of chronic disease, we can see dramatic effects. And I'll be telling you about one thing in my life that made all the difference in my own recovery from a chronic disease. The idea of a mind-body connection is often treated as California hippie juju by mainstream medical circles. But in recent years, an ever-growing mountain of evidence is demonstrating that not only are our mind, body, and health connected, but that our internal world is affected by the external world around us. I'm talking about peer-reviewed academic research which has exploded in the last 5 to 10 years with thanks to advancements in modern technology. Research which is demonstrating that social connectedness lowers blood pressure and fortifies the immune system. Research demonstrating that meditation can flip the switch on genes affecting disease. Research demonstrating that a walk in the forest can boost your immune system's cancer-fighting natural killer cells by 50%. Research demonstrating that exercise triggers the production of BDNF, or brain fertilizer, which nurtures the development of new brain cells. And, as you've just heard about in the case of Mr. A, research demonstrating that our beliefs and expectations can have physiological effects on our body and health. I'm on a mission to tell the world about this research, and like all good missions, mine is personal. I was 24 years old when I was first told by a doctor that he suspected I had lupus, an autoimmune disease where my immune system was attacking my own body, causing pain and inflammation. I was devastated. I was just getting started in life. I'd just landed my dream job working as a journalist for the ABC, and here I was being told that if the disease progressed, I may end up in a wheelchair or with organ failure, and that when the time came, I may have trouble having children. My doctor put me on long-term medication to suppress my immune system, and he sent me on my way to live the rest of my life with a chronic disease. But I wasn't prepared to accept that I would be saddled with this illness, and the journalist in me wanted answers. So in the last 10 years, I've travelled the world, interviewing leading health researchers from some of the best institutions in the world, like Harvard and Stanford. And I've discovered that there is far more that I could be doing for my health than even some of my doctors are aware of. The result of all of that work is a film I made called The Connection, and it's now screened all over the world. It's also inspired a motivated movement of people who have hosted their own community screenings and panel discussions. And I'm happy to say that it's also screened to first-year medical students at some of the world's best medical schools, including Harvard. There are two unremarkable things about my story. The first is that I got sick in the first place. I'd like to invite you all just to take a moment to think about the people in your own life who might be sick. You might know someone who's got chronic stomach issues or a food allergy. You might know someone who suffers from chronic migraines or chronic back pains. Perhaps you know someone with a mental illness, anxiety, or addiction. It might be that you know someone with hypertension or heart disease, diabetes, or cancer. It might be your partner, it might be your child, it might be your best friend, your neighbour, or your colleague. The reality is, we are living in the age of chronic disease. There's more than a 1 in 2 chance you'll end up dying with a chronic illness. Let me just say that again. According to the World Health Organization, there's more than a 1 in 2 chance you'll end up dying with a chronic disease. There's one thing that we know about this worldwide epidemic, and that is that the current approach is not working. Now, don't get me wrong, if I was in a serious car accident or I needed an urgent tumour removed, the first place I would want to be is in a major hospital being treated by the best of the best conventionally trained medical professionals. But if we see our doctor for something which is chronic and ongoing and maybe getting worse over time, too often we leave with nothing but a prescription that treats the symptoms rather than the underlying cause. Have a sore back? Take this painkiller. Chronic arthritis? Try this anti-inflammatory. Feeling blue? Try an antidepressant. These are band-aid solutions that rarely treat the underlying cause of the problem. Our doctors mean well for us, but many of them are being crushed by this tsunami, and they need this information just as much as we do. In fact, a recent study showed just how high their risk of burnout is with this current situation. So it's little wonder that it takes an average of 17 years for new discoveries to be incorporated into mainstream medical practice. 17 years is a really, really long time to wait if you're chronically ill. The good news is that there's a lot that we can be doing for our own health right now. As I stand before you, I am the healthiest I've ever been in my life. I am not on any medication for my autoimmune disease. I am currently pregnant with my second baby, who's due sometime in late July. So what did I do? What did it take to get better? To answer this question, I'm going to come back to the science. And I'll start with a study which was published way back in 1998 and gave us a significant clue to where the answer lies. This study demonstrated that a lifestyle program which included yoga, meditation, a healthy diet, and peer and community support was able to stop, slow, or reverse the progression of heart disease without the use of drugs or surgery. The man behind that study, and many others like it, is Dr. Dean Ornish, and I travelled to San Francisco to interview him about the study and some of his others, which have been getting dramatic results with other illnesses, including prostate cancer and type 2 diabetes. This is a doctor-supervised program, and the research supporting it is so robust that US Medicare covers its costs for the heart disease program in hospitals and clinics. But the Ornish program isn't the only one which is getting solid results in clinical trials. I also met Professor Herbert Benson, who's considered by many people to be the founding father of modern mind-body medicine research. His program was recently demonstrated to be able to reduce hospital and doctor visits by 43% in the year after people participated. The relaxation response, which is a technique that he developed as part of the program, has also been shown to change the way that genes affecting disease are expressed. I also met John Kabat-Zinn, or JKZ, as we like to call him in our office. He's a rock star in the mindfulness world. And his program, the Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction Program, has been getting extraordinary results in clinical trials. It's even been shown to be able to shrink our brain's stress centre in just 8 weeks. We've also got some homegrown talent taking a whole health approach to diseases for which conventional medicine offers no cure. I met Professor George Jelinek, who's one of the most respected emergency physicians in this country. Professor Jelinek was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, a crushing blow for a man who was in the prime of his career, who had seen his own mother's tragic experience with the illness, ultimately resulting in her suicide. But rather than me telling you about his story, I'll let him tell you in his own words, and I'll play you a section from The Connection. Here we go.
To be diagnosed with MS was just an enormous blow. I mean, it's impossible to adequately convey how life-changing that is. At a stage when you've got a really young family and you've just been appointed to a really important new job and things seem apparently to be going really well in your life, it's like an enormous hand just reaches in and takes your life away from you. In an instant, it's just gone. I started thinking, why have I gotten sick? Why did I get sick right now? What is this illness doing for me? What does it mean in the context of my life? And so I had a path suddenly to explore. I'm no stranger to medical research in the job I do, so it was relatively easy for me to look through the medical literature and see what had been written about this illness before. And really, the literature had so many clues about what causes MS and what makes it worse that it wasn't that difficult to put that together. I think I got sick in hindsight because everything in my life was really out of whack. It was really out of balance. And it was the exploration of that path really that led me to be well and keeps me well.
The extraordinary thing about Professor Jelinek is that he has not only recovered from multiple sclerosis, but people who do his Overcoming Multiple Sclerosis program have also been doing the same. And when you look at all of these programs that I've been talking about, there's something that they all share. There's something that they all have in common. They all take a whole health, whole life approach to the treatment of chronic illness. People are supervised by conventional medical professionals. People are taught to incorporate whole foods and fresh fruit and vegetables into their lives. People are also taught to make movement and exercise part of their everyday lives. They're taught to make meditation and mindfulness a habit, not a chore. They're taught about emotional balance, about changing the way they perceive their stress, and they're taught to work out what really matters in life. And there's another element which I think is actually at the heart of their success. And I think this is actually the most underestimated weapon we have in the fight against chronic disease. People in these programs are part of a supportive community. When I look back at my own health crisis, I now see that I got sick because of the perfect storm. I have a genetic predisposition towards autoimmune disease. I was eating badly, I was sleeping badly, I was chronically stressed. I'd taken on the emotional problems of other people as if they were my own. But in the eye of the storm was the fact that I was lonely. I was living away from my family and friends, and I had been for years. My communication with people who knew me well was mostly via text messages and emails. And although I made an effort to get out and meet new people and socialise, rich, deep connections with people was getting harder and harder, and I had an underlying sense of loneliness and isolation. The research demonstrating the connection between our relationships and our health is utterly compelling. Whilst we're living in the most urbanised time of human history, many of us are chronically lonely. Already for 15 to 30% of the population, loneliness is a chronic state. Let's just take a moment to think about what that statistic means. The chances are that if you yourself are not feeling elements of loneliness, the person next to you or someone around you is. It's predicted that loneliness will reach epidemic proportions by 2030 unless action is taken. And at the same time, a comprehensive review of 70 studies demonstrated that loneliness is on par with some of the other major risk factors that routinely make the list of public health concerns, such as lack of exercise, obesity, addiction, and mental illness. My life today is unrecognisable from what it was like when I first got sick. I now live in a part of Sydney where my family and friends are minutes rather than an aeroplane ride away. I spend hours every week talking with my husband openly and with an open mind. I schedule catch-ups with my friends so that they happen routinely and regularly and they take no effort. Among the many types of meditation I practice is loving kindness meditation. And I also make an effort to reach out to strangers. And rather than looking at my phone when I'm at the hospital, the supermarket checkout, I often ask the cashier how they're going. In fact, a recent exchange with a nurse who was taking blood for me, who I'd never met, resulted in both of us sharing personal life experiences and ending up in the tears of human connection. You might like to think about this after I finish speaking, and perhaps you might like to have a conversation with someone today that you might not have otherwise done so with. It may well be a bright spot in an otherwise dark day for someone who's in the grips of loneliness. The takeaway message from all of this is that good health is not just about taking our medicine, eating our fruit and vegetables, exercising regularly, and getting enough sleep. Those things are all very, very important, crucially important. But if we want to turn this chronic disease ship around, we need to take a whole health, whole life approach. And that includes reviewing our beliefs and our mindsets. It means tending to our stress levels and our emotional well-being. And of course, it means nurturing our relationships. I started this talk by telling you the story of Mr. A, who had been clinically depressed and suicidal after an argument with his ex. And I used that story as an example of how our mind, body, and health are connected. But in closing, I'd like to put forward an alternate scenario. What if, instead of when Mr. A had a conversation with his doctor and expressed feelings of loneliness and depression, instead of being enrolled in a clinical drug trial, what if Mr. A had been recommended a program that taught him the life skills to incorporate mood-boosting habits like eating well, sleeping well, and exercising regularly? What if Mr. A had the tools to be able to handle the emotional turbulence of an argument with his ex? What if Mr. A felt that he had solid relationships and more love and support in his life? I strongly suspect he would never have taken those pills in the first place. Thank you.